live. I think we're good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Dan Sissick, and I'm here with some friends. And we are going through the book, Whatever Arises, Love That, A Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. This is the book that we're in. We're in chapter 6, I think it is. Yeah, 6. And we'll be starting with reading that in a minute. But first, I'm going to take a personal moment before I let everybody jump out and say hi. I'm going to kind of boast a little bit about a good friend. She's on here this morning. She doesn't know I'm doing this. So, but this is her book that she just put out recently that I bought to help support her. First of all, because I love her to death and I think she's an awesome person. But it's called Not Now Cricket, and it's a great book. I read it. It touched me. It really touched me in a way, and it's a children's book. But I think for anybody who needs a little bit of just a hug, so to speak, in a sense of a type of hug, which I think are very healthy and very what people need sometimes. It's not somebody just saying, oh, I get you or I feel you or whatever. Sometimes a hug is what people really need. And in a way, this book kind of hugged me because of some of the things I went through in my past and as a kid and things like that. And it really touched me. And I think for those that are even adults that read it, it will touch them and kind of just reassure them. It reminded me of how my grandmother might act or how she might say some things or how she would reaffirm and say things. Even if she was busy, she would come around and always come around and come back and somehow let me know. So I just think this is an awesome book. I think a lot of people should go out and read it, even if it's for themselves. So sorry, that's my shameful plug. So now whoever wants to jump out and introduce themselves, please do.
Yeah, Catherine did a great job.
I'm going to jump out real quick and say,
oh yeah, go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dan. And I am just so, I don't think you can give somebody, that writes a book a greater acknowledgement than to say that it touched your heart, so it just really, thank you. It just really means a lot to know that it does that, because that's what it was intended to do. So that makes it successful. Even with one sale, that makes the book successful.
Yeah, that's terrific. And congratulations on getting that published, Catherine. Fantastic. Jason Roberts here in Tampa Bay, Florida. Glad to be here.
I'm Angel down here in South Carolina.
This is Samantha here in Indianapolis, Indiana. And by the way, for those of you who are watching, if you want to get that book, I will put a link below the recording of this video. If you're in the live stream, you can go to Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook. Search for us on Facebook, and then and there's a link to that book in our group right now. If you're watching and you want to go over there and get it, you don't want to wait for me to post the link in the recording. As a FYI.
I'm here in Aloha, and again, my Wi-Fi is unstable, so I don't know if you can tell if I'm here or not, but I'm always glad to be here.
We can hear you and see you, Karen. It's always wonderful to have you here with us. All right, I'm going to jump over to Scribd and start reading. All right. So for those of you that are on Scribd, we're at page 113 on Scribd, I guess. I don't know. On my phone it is. It may be different on your, depending on the size of the, if you're using a tablet or a phone or whatnot. So we're starting out at when personalities become inflamed. If reality is like an ocean with the waves representing various personalities that crash and collide from one interaction to the next, you realize that both the ocean and the waves are equally a part of one eternal truth. If you hold a more classical definition of ego as the personality of body, you may assume the ocean must become void of waves in order to be what it already is. Just like waves cannot crash or collide in such a way that will cause the ocean to drown, your personality is never in the way of recognizing a truth that always exists within you. This helps you understand the nature of ego as a conditioned tendency to be lost in an inflamed personality structure due to an overstimulated nervous system. Typically, the word inflammation is associated with the different ways that bodies respond to their environment. This can include reactions to certain types of food in which allergens are capable of producing an inflammatory or toxic response in the body. Ego is what happens when the personality gets inflamed. For example, when you see someone who is angry, they are in a state of emotional inflammation. To say that they're in ego may be a true statement, but through the eyes of the universe, you are able to see how they are having an, quote, allergic reaction to their conditioned state of being. This means ego is much like an allergy toward the unconsciousness that each of us came here to resolve. When the ego is active, the innocence within you or within anyone else exists in an exaggerated manner. As you love what arises, you heal your vibrational allergies to joyfully live on an evolving planet, no matter how quickly or slowly others around you seem to grow. When you start to see ego as the inflammation of the personality, you notice how often you can become puffed up. Whether puffed up in the righteousness, defensive postures, or in response to the evidence of injustice, an inflamed personality creates an exaggerated perception of life. When living with an allergic reaction to the vibration of the planet, an exaggerated level of consciousness causes you to oscillate between spiritual highs and emotional lows. This can create much suffering until you cultivate love as a potent form of energy medicine to return your personality to its original form. 4 types of inflammation. While intuitively guided in my exploration of ego, I've come to recognize 4 basic types of inflammation. The first one is called righteous inflammation. It is characterized by an ego structure that feeds on needing to always be right by making others wrong. Even in the presence of one who is saying something totally correct, the ego that is righteously inflamed must make another point in an attempt to be even more right than the other. This type of ego lives to have the upper hand and final word, even if both parties agree on the topic at hand. The theme of righteous inflammation is, I'm always right. One of the aspects of a righteous ego is skepticism. This occurs when an ego is convinced that the way it sees the world is the way everyone else should see it. In an attempt to subconsciously keep the inflammation of righteousness alive and active, this person remains skeptical of anything other than their specific point of view. The second type of inflamed ego is called victimized inflammation. This is the kind of inflammation in which an ego believes it is always a victim of circumstances. From this perception, even when life seems to be going right, something always happens to turn it upside down. A victimized ego holds very tightly to its judgments, beliefs, and opinions as the reasons their life is regularly in chaos. This type of inflammation is commonly fed by beliefs in superstition. Oftentimes, the more spiritually themed a superstition happens to be, the more it inflames this type of ego structure. Whether a belief in light versus dark or pitting good against bad, a victimized ego typically acts as an instigator of turmoil that is guaranteed to be hurt or heartbroken by the way others respond to it. Even if others do not respond at all, a victimized ego uses such feedback to feel invisible or inferior to the world around it. When caught in the inflammation of victimhood, it is quite difficult, though not impossible, to see your circumstances as divine catalysts of universal will. A victimized ego cannot grasp that everything in reality is there to help it transform. This is because a victimized ego is fueled by stagnation, refusing to grow in a world of endless change. If the theme of righteous inflammation is, I'm always right, then the theme of a victimized ego is, life isn't fair. When in the grip of victimized inflammation, everyone and everything outside of you is the source of your pain, which prevents a larger cosmic picture from being recognized. The third type of inflammation is called entitled inflammation. This occurs when a person believes it is their right to have whatever they want, exactly when they want it, even at the expense or to the detriment of others. Of course, there's nothing inherently wrong or problematic in believing that you are worthy of receiving all that you desire, since worthiness is an aspect of your higher truth. However, when the personality becomes inflamed, an innate sense of worthiness becomes exaggerated. In entitled inflammation, the ego tends to believe that everyone must fulfill their every whim and demand with little to no regard for the well-being of other people's experiences. As you can imagine, the theme of an entitled ego is, what about me? Even when served by others, there is never an end to the requests and demands of an ego that believes it controls the characters in its life. The fourth type of inflammation is called needy inflammation. In this type of ego, no matter how much attention is received from others, it never feels like enough to be properly filled up. Despite how intently someone listens, there is always a lingering sense of being invisible, unrecognized, undervalued, or unheard. In needy inflammation, it's easy to feel misunderstood. No matter how much time, interest, and attention you receive from others, it only makes this type of ego, hungry for more. Whether active in you or someone you know, needy inflammation can be quite draining for those held in the grip of it. Needy inflammation brings to life the true meaning of the term energy vampire. When inflamed in this way, no matter how much reassurance you get from others, you are always afraid of being abandoned, left out, or losing everything you've been given. As a result, the theme of needy inflammation is, it's never enough. While you may recognize yourself or others in these descriptions, it is common to embody combinations of those aspects or to flow in and out like the changing of weather patterns. I've even seen ego structures that are combinations of all four aspects at once. Even at that stage of inflammation, there is always a possibility of true, heartfelt relief when loving yourself becomes your reoccurring response to any question or concern. In each of these aspects of inflammation, there's always a kernel of truth. However, when your personality gets inflamed, things get quite exaggerated. For example, in the natural state of your true innocent nature, it is not righteousness, but rather the wisdom of the universe that wishes to spare others undue suffering by providing insights that could help change their lives. Having a desire to point someone in a better direction as a way of assisting in their journey is a wonderfully inspired impulse. Yet, when your personality is inflamed, you go from wanting to uplift the lives of others to always needing to be right by making another wrong in the process. Even in victimized inflammation, there is truth to the experience of feeling as if everything is personally happening to you. This is a reflection of your true innocent nature, experiencing the ups and downs of life from a close, intimate perspective. It's always important to remember that your seat in the theater of life is within the body of the main character. This means your front row seat exists as I am. There is, in fact, some truth to the direct experience that everything happens to you. However, when the personality is inflamed and your perception of life is exaggerated, it appears as if everything in the world is conspiring against you in a relentless and overwhelming way. Equally, with entitled inflammation, when rooted in your natural state of innocence, it is under the power of your own divine authority to receive all that you dream, wish, and desire. In every breath, you have every right to have more prosperity than can ever be imagined, to have fulfilling, committed relationships, to travel around the world, and to see the most breathtaking creations that have ever materialized into form. In your natural state, there is a healthy level of cosmic confidence that allows you to stand tall and fully own your life as a unique expression of spirit in action. Yet, excuse me, when your personality gets inflamed and your view of life becomes exaggerated, the innate confidence of being worthy becomes an imbalanced desire for the world to work for you at anyone's expense. Even in needy inflammation, there is also a truth to be seen. At the core of your being, there is a deep-rooted desire to connect with others as unique ways of encountering your own divinity in different forms. There is a desire to connect, to be heard, to hear others, and to express uniqueness throughout your life. But when your personality becomes inflamed, a desire to express and connect becomes neediness, an inferno of hunger that cannot be extinguished. No matter how much is received from others, only more desperation is created when the personality is inflamed. Sorry, turning my notifications off. I usually do that ahead of time, sorry. By exploring ego in a more heart-centered way, you can have greater patience and compassion throughout your daily encounters. Instead of ridiculing or persecuting the characters within your life, you will be able to see the light of divinity dancing in a play of exaggerated perception. While the ability to see at this cosmic level may be limited by an inflamed personality, any amount of time spent incubating in a cocoon of ego prepares you to awaken a greater truth for all. So I read both of those because the first one pretty much just introduced us to the concept, and then the second part gave the 4 different types. So I'm sure all of us in some way relate to aspects of each of these. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was just a really interesting concept to think about this idea of looking at our ego when we're struggling with something as like an inflammation response. I thought that was just a really interesting way of looking at it in a whole new way. You know, if we're talking about in general, we're feeling at peace, everything is fine, then then our ego is just kind of like sitting there, and then but then when we get upset about something, is as if our ego is rejecting or having an allergic reaction to whatever the circumstance is. And so anyway, I thought that was just real interesting. I'm glad that you went ahead and read the different types of inflammation responses, if you will.
I'm glad too that you did that. However, as you were reading, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I wish we could just take this chunk right here and get an idea of each person's response to that, because I realized I was thinking of of myself. I was thinking of television shows. I was thinking of other people that I felt were an example to me of that state. And I also recognize something I haven't thought about for quite a while, and that is my body's response. Listening to one of the examples, I felt an immediate kind of prickly chill on the front of my lower legs, and I thought, that's pretty interesting, because if I experience that again, which is not usual, perhaps I can relate or remind myself about these states of ego and see if I feel like I'm in one of those states, or if I feel that the person that I'm observing might be as well.
Yeah, I kind of agree a little bit with, well, I agree definitely a lot with what Samantha was saying, and a little bit with, for me, I never really realized there were different inflammations, for using the terms that he's, because I'll be honest, I think I've experienced or been in all of them at some point in time, as I've looked back on my life, and I'm like, well, there have been times when I've really have felt, that righteous ego where I thought, been in that mode and, dealt that way, and where, but the one that really got me was the victimized inflammation, because I think for a lot of years I did act in that frame of mind, kind of, especially when I was younger, and I kind of, didn't realize I was still in that, reacting to that from stuff that happened when I was younger. But as I've gotten older and gone through a lot of the books and the things that we've, talked about and gone through, that has helped me kind of, place better markers, so to speak, on those things. And sometimes I forget to pay attention, and I go right into those modes rather than maybe taking that step back sometimes to understand why I'm going into that mode, and maybe see if I can, I don't want to say short circuit, but maybe rechannel that irritant that's causing me to be in that inflamed state, and maybe, pay more, and like what you said, Karen, maybe pay more attention to, is the other person in that state, or what state are they coming in? How can I balance it out rather than react and come from that reactionary stuff that we talked about before, and other sections of the book, so that way I can better help the other person maybe a little bit, and also better help myself, so that neither one of us are in that inflamed state.
I want to welcome someone that just joined us, and I hope I pronounced the name right, Sanjeev. Welcome. We're so happy to have you with us, and feel free to unmute and share your comments with us and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Sanjeev, and I'm talking from Georgia, Bonner, Georgia. And I happened to see your channel about 10 minutes ago, and I'm so glad I'm here. I'm a physics professor, but I'm inclined towards spiritual matters, and I followed the discussion and the reading for the most part. Of course, I didn't know the book you were discussing, but I'm so glad to be here. My question is this, a couple of questions, friends. We talked about 4 egos. So is it possible, in your opinion, that sometimes it's a mishmash of all the 4 types, or maybe 2 types or 3 types? I mean, we cannot have just one kind of ego being present at a certain time. For example, I can be resentful as well as, I think, vindictive. So that was my question when I was listening to Catherine. And the other question is this. I heard some friends and some speakers saying that I noticed that my ego was this. So who is the I who notices that? I mean, that is what really intrigues me. When you say that I was the person who was noticing that this was happening to me. So I believe the real I, the real self, is beyond the personality and the ego that we talk about. So if someone can talk about that, it will be so wonderful for me to hear from all your esteemed friends that who is that I who notices that what kind of ego, or what is my reaction, or what is the reaction of the ego per se at a particular moment. I'll be so intrigued to hear your response. In fact, I promise you, friends, try to join every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, because this is really, really interesting and very nice to listen, very inspirational, informative for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we will love to have you here with us every week. I absolutely believe that we can be in multiple of these egos, and even more probably than just the 4 that he wrote about. And I think that it's not something that we necessarily put away forever. I do think that we kind of flow in and out of these things, and learning to recognize them with our I, and I consider my I to be, I have been had out of body experiences, near death experience, and have been outside of my body. That's my I, that's who I am as a spirit. As an eternal soul. Now, these are just my beliefs, but and my experiences. So when I'm trying to observe my ego, I step back and look from the observer point and observe what is going on, just like I am watching a movie or something, and I would be looking at the characters and what they're, how they're playing their parts. Those are egos. So that's how I observe, is just by stepping back, pretending like I'm watching a movie, and that way I can look at myself and see what character are you playing right now, maybe which area of inflammation are you in, and why are you there. And I'm sure others on the panel have thought.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. These are topics we talk about all the time, Sanjeev, and we've studied a number of different books that kind of touch on these different aspects of the I behind the Samantha. It's like, who is that? And we enjoy having these types of discussions, because you feel like, okay, once we start recognizing some of these aspects of our personalities, of our egos, of our responses to things and events and people and all of that in life, then you realize, wait a second, there's a pause between that observer side and the reactionary side, and studying that and looking at how we can control how we respond once we recognize there's that option to do so, and that we can work through our programmed responses, or our, I don't know if it's necessarily programmed, or if it is more of just conditioned responses to recognizing that we have some aspect of control over that. And it's just all fascinating, very, very fascinating. So, but I definitely agree with you on the concept that we can have multiple different responses at the same time, whether we're feeling that we're in that kind of self-righteousness, when we're having a conversation with somebody and we think that we know the answer, and maybe we aren't completely listening to the other person because we're so stuck in our own personal, our own perspective, or the victimized personality that feels like, oh, you just don't get what's happening to me, or what was the other one, was the idea that oh, you don't hear what I'm saying, you don't see me for who I am, those kinds of things. So it's so fascinating, so very fascinating. I don't want to hog all the time, so everybody have a chance to jump out.
I'm going to jump out because now I'm going to go from a little bit of my perspective, because I'll be honest, I don't believe I'm fully as in tune with some of the things that we talk about here. I'm learning and becoming more aware and becoming a little more in touch. But a lot of times I get into those and I'm already in those situations, and I'm already in multiple, inflamed responses of, the victimized or the righteous ego, or, depending on how I'm dealing with the other person. But a lot of times when I go back and kind of look at it and replay some of the things that I've gone over, that's when I can go back and say, oh, they were here. I was not really taking that time to listen, and then I can see, oh, I was just really dead set on what I wanted to say or where I was at. So then at that point, I think for me, a lot of times I get so in my own head and thinking about where I am or how I'm going to respond or what I'm going to do, that I don't really open up enough sometimes to receive what the other person is saying, because I've already perceiving it however I think I should be perceived, rather than how it actually is being presented. And then I just automatically respond. So I think for me, a lot of times it's in that when I take time and kind of slow and stop, and in certain instances where I come back and I later thought, and I have that really uneasy feeling of that did not go well, something was wrong, and then now I'm feeling even in an altered state afterwards, because it didn't resolve the way I think it could have. And then I review it and I'm like, oh, well, I could have done that differently, or maybe next time change my approach and try to be more active rather than reactionary. So that's kind of how I am, and that's kind of how I do it. And I don't always catch it either. That's the other part. I don't always catch everything as much as I would like to.
Welcome, Lori. I see you popped on. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. I just, what I was noticing as well, I like what you were saying there, Dan, and I totally agree with the idea that we can flow in and out of these, and even have a combination of them at the same time. That makes perfect sense to me. But something I was realizing also is that even though my interpretation of ego seems like it's always been where the inflammation is so great that it's almost like an outburst or an uncontrollable reaction, that what I'm realizing is, while you were mentioning all these different types, that I related to each one in a way, but that I felt like it was like they weren't a really large part of my personality. And then I realized that, well, perhaps I experience each one of these at a very low level or a low vibration, to where it's not an outburst like we might think of being in an argument with someone, but just in a general thought process. For instance, I may be experiencing a good pattern of luck in my life, and then my mind switches over to say, okay, we'll be ready because something's going to happen to derail this, and so it doesn't seem like an overly energetic thought, but it's something that just sort of enters my mind. And I hadn't thought of the ego that way, as to where it might be something that's part of my internal guidance system. So this makes me a lot more aware of how it can develop in my everyday. So thanks, and beautiful reading, by the way, Catherine. Thank you very much for that.
I was reminded at some point in the conversation, I think it was reflecting on who is the I. There was a period of time when I was trying to understand the I am concept. And I read a suggestion of, taking time in the day, taking time in a walk, taking time in a situation to say I am, and tell yourself I'm that plate, I'm that dog that I'm looking at, I'm that vase, I'm that tree, I'm that flower, and kind of thinking about that. I was very surprised at how the exercise opened me to considering different perspectives of whatever it was that I was looking at. And as the reading went on this morning, I was noticing that I was, this is probably going to sound kind of silly. I've never watched a whole lot of TV, and now that I'm in a kind of a senior place where I'm all alone amongst a group of people my age, I end up watching more TV, and I'm seeing reruns of lots and lots of shows that I know that have been around for a long time. One was Touched by an Angel, and I happened to see something that had to be the first experience of Monica coming out, trying to come out as an angel, and kind of being barked at. I can't think of the older woman's name, but I was thinking while I was watching that she was not being very compassionate, and it was something that came through while the reading was going on, that I was, as it often comes through for me, I'm judging, and I'm thinking I'm right, and there's just a lot for me in terms of kind of washing back and forth in the different states of ego, and how I see. I think that's something I probably observe a lot in others, or think I'm observing a lot.
on your note, Karen, about, kind of where you were talking about now that you're in this, as you call it, senior place where you're around, you seem like you've always been tended to be around people that were maybe like you're literally right around your age and younger. And now you're kind of here in a atmosphere that's kind of, it's really foreign to you. I kind of get the feeling, and it sounds like, and you're still trying to figure out what will work for you and what will best benefit you. And so, now maybe one of the egos or whatever that is coming out is kind of more in your face, and now you're dealing with it. Because I think, sometimes if we pay attention to what's going on around us, we can see some of those things and be more mindful of it, but also let it be something that can help us and help us grow and help us move forward into growing into, as we move into greater self-awareness, I guess, greater connection, and into the I that the I that you guys are talking about, and more connectedness with overall everything. And I think there's always something to be taken and extracted out of all the situations we're in to help us basically grow to be the best of who we are here. So when we return back to, for me, God, and back into that stream, I think we'll take some of that with us. I don't know how it will go connect, but I believe that some of that will be in there and be with us, and it will carry on into wherever we ultimately move to, for lack of a better way of saying it.
So friends, just a small request. Since I'm new to the group, can somebody illustrate for me the format? So I guess first we'll read a passage or a chapter, half a chapter of the book, and then we discuss, correct? And then I believe the session is recorded, and then we can also view it later on YouTube. My question is, sometimes if I go back to the session and then I think of an additional comment, can I comment directly on the YouTube channel, or should I just comment amongst the group? How does that work? And also, one very minor point, I love the banner which some of you have. I think Samantha has and Jason has at the backdrop. Can I get the background which says Mindful Summit or something? That'll be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think Jason, that picture that he has in his background was a photo he found, or he's got on his computer. And the same thing, this one that I have, I took a picture when I was in Florida also, and then I just added our logo image to that. So you can, whichever you prefer, I can send you exactly what I have, or you can take a picture that you like, and then I can give you the logo piece to go on there if you'd like that. Yeah, exactly what Jason's pointing at. And yeah, as far as the format, that you've got it right. And we read a little bit, and then we discuss it. We share our thoughts, and sometimes we share our experiences, or a lot of times we share our experiences, and then we each kind of learn from that. But you are welcome to share a comment on the YouTube channel below the videos, or in our Facebook group if you're a Facebook member. As you can search for Mindset Mastery Collective. I'm guessing that's maybe where you found the link to join us, although I have that posted in a number of different places. So wherever, we're always happy to have people add their thoughts and considerations to our our topics of conversation, because then we all get to see that different perspective, and that's a great way to grow. So thank you.
And just to add on top of that, we do have a website, mindsetmasterycollective.com, has more information there, as well as, like Samantha was saying, Mindset Mastery Collective on Facebook. So those are also places and things like that. But yeah, commenting on the YouTube, that definitely, I think we've all done it at one point in time over the years with all the different videos we have up there. But would love to hear, even if you don't have something to add here, or you don't think about it, or you come across something upon review, you can always then go back and add your thoughts to the YouTube and share it there. That's always helpful, and we love, because sometimes I'll go back and look and read through, and then, oh, that's a nice point. Oh, I like that. And then it reopens up, and you kind of go over everything again too.
Yeah, and we use Messenger as well on Facebook to kind of stay in touch on a more real time. So if there's any questions when you're in the group, you could use the Messenger if there's something you have a point that you were looking for clarification on. But I always love to leave a comment on YouTube or on the Facebook. So on Facebook, so that, because it gives me more, I don't know, it's up there for everyone to see, and it gives me more space to elaborate on what it is that I'm trying to what I've experienced or re-experienced by rewatching the videos. And if you would like contact me or some more, Samantha, we can send you the logo, or if you have a particular image, talk to us, and I could actually put the logo up there for you on the image, and then you could use it as a background. So I like what you're saying, Sanjeev, in regards to the I am. I think that's one of the neat aspects in regards to taking the time to look at ourselves kind of introspectively, and even noticing our personalities and how we react to things in a real time situation. It does kind of make you wonder, how are we separated? How is our personality and our ego and our id and all the different aspects of our existence, how does it layer, or what is it, when we're looking from a point of a perspective that allows us to be aware, kind of in a third person sort of a way, what it is that we are reacting to, how we're reacting, and then actually have a thought process about it that allows us to learn and grow, and that's really what this book kind of in the earlier chapters was speaking about. We're just speaking about the inflamed ego right now, but the name of the book is let's see, where is it? Here in my image, and it's whatever arises, love that, by Matt Kahn. That's the book, and as Catherine said in the beginning, you can get it on Scribd for if you wanted to read it off of your tablet, or I think we might still even have a link for you to grab it off of Amazon. But yeah, please contact and get in contact with us on the Facebook group, and we'd be happy to further the discussion with you. Glad to see you and glad to meet you. Glad to have you on here.
Yeah, once again, I'll say I've said it in the chat, but definitely glad that you joined us. I think we've all said would love to hear your perspective and everything like that. We've become a pretty cohesive group. We all love each other, and we've been through a lot of books over the years that we've gone through, and it's helped all of us. We've all have shared a lot, exposed ourselves in a lot of ways, here on here for the world to see and things like that. But that's part of the learning and the growing and becoming better connected and understanding where people are coming from, where they're at, and so we can better respond in love and in empathy and in care, rather than just not engaging, I guess, or not caring, or being so worried about ourselves. I think the more we try to understand and connect and learn and grow from each other, the better we can be. And I think that's the one thing that I love about this group is we do that, and it's a safe place here. We try to keep it that way, to where we don't make anybody, put anybody down or anything. We try to build people up, lift them up, in that respect also. So with that, that's my little 2 cents worth there too.
Well, I'm going to thank all of you, especially Dan and Jason and Samantha. I feel really welcome here, friends, and I already feel connected to all of you. It's uncanny because obviously I don't know any one of you. So I'm so glad I found you. As I mentioned in my chat, I'm not on Facebook. I know I don't have to be back on Facebook to be connected, but I was thinking of joining back on Facebook anyway, so I can do that. The reason why I mentioned the I in the beginning, because I believe, and of course this is a great book we're discussing, that all the egos we're talking about, all the kinds of egos, these are kind of false in the sense that the real self, the real I is the observer. And at some level, we have to recognize that that is the authentic self. The observer is the real me. And all of the other egos are imposters, if you will. I mean, this is based, of course, on the books I've read in the past and also my own personal experience, because, the other psyches and personalities seem to keep changing and evolving as we grow and we change through the lives, the life we live through the days. But that real self, that I that is observing these egos, whether victimized or traumatized or, whatever, that I remains the same. So anything that accentuates that part of us, that is the real part. Like I think one of you said that it was, I believe, Catherine who said that she had an out-of-body experience. So that person who observes all that, that is what we have to focus on. And of course, we'll keep on reading different viewpoints and different books and all that. But if we keep that part in mind, in our minds, that it is that I that is paramount, that is most important. I believe in my journey, my spiritual journey, which I've started a few years ago, that will help me a lot. And the fact that I can talk to kindred souls such as all of you. The fact that I don't get to have these conversations in my professional life, even with my friends. I don't really have too many friends with whom I can really discuss these things. So that itself is a big boon for me. So, like I said earlier on, I will be for sure joining you guys on Saturdays, however long it takes. I know we crossed more than an hour, but it's no biggie at all. I can be here as long as it takes to really connect with you and also learn from you, learn from the book, the particular book we are reading at the moment. did you guys ever, I mean, I'm going off track right now, read a book by Michael Singer called The Undead Soul, because that is my current favorite book. So if we have not discussed that book, so once we have done reading this book, maybe we can choose that one, or any book by Wayne Dyer. But I think going off topic. I'm totally, I think, going off track, digressing right now. But yeah, so I'm so happy to be here amongst all of you, and I will comment, on YouTube, and if I join back on the Facebook channel, I can always go back and comment on whatever we have discussed. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Sanjeev, I can't tell you how many times we have had the same kind of topic come up, and that there isn't other people we can have these discussions with where we feel safe sharing our thoughts on everything. And because it's just not an easy topic to bring up a lot of the times when we're looking at these deeper things in our lives, and because so many people are stuck in that kind of self-righteous, that they aren't even open to having the conversation, and it's hard. And so we love that, and that is one of the biggest things over the years that we've discovered, that we created this safe place to be able to explore different aspects of ourselves, different aspects of our beliefs about religion and life and spirituality and the nature of things, and we it's a fascinating subject that I am so deeply connected with, and I love talking to other people and just expanding my mind. And I think that's what everybody here is interested in doing. And yes, I can't remember if it was the Untethered Soul that I read. That one seems like he has another one. I don't remember which one it was.
It's called The Surrender Experiment. He has two books, The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment. And he's got one more forthcoming, Samantha. It's called Living Untethered. So it's coming soon. So that book is going to be released in May. So if we are done discussing this book, we can maybe go to the next one, if possible,
It is possible. We tend to, when we get close to the end of a book, is that in our Facebook group, we kind of post a poll of a suggest the book that you want to discuss, and then we all kind of vote on it and we land where we land. So yeah, it's definitely an option.
Perfect.
And we have studied, one of the books was by Wayne Dyer, years back. It was his one's Change Your Thought, Change Your Life, where he studied the wisdom of the Tao. And that was a very fascinating book that we went through. And it actually was our transition from strictly business related type of personal development into spiritual and deeper thought type of topics.
So if I can ask, this group has been formed how long ago? How long ago was this group formed, Samantha?
I think about that sometimes, and then I go back and I look at when I started the videos, and I want to say it was 2013, 2015, something like that. I think we've got like 370 some videos on YouTube, and we've uploaded every single one. We don't meet every Saturday, but it's most Saturdays, and we try and communicate when we're going, oh, we can't do it this week or whatever. But yeah.
And it has been only the 7 or 8 friends, Samantha. Did we have more people at one time and the group has dwindled in numbers? I'm just curious.
It's fluctuated. We've had, I started out with a couple of people. We grew a little bit. We lost some people. Then we came back and we got more people. And then my core few people right here, Catherine, Jason, and Dan, have been with me for the longest time, and Karen too. And Lori just joined us this past year. Or gosh, has it been more than a year, Lori? I can't remember. Time goes by so. It's a funny thing, time. Like it seems like yesterday. It seems like it's and yet it seems like forever ago. But yeah, very fascinating. So, do we want to go ahead and wrap up our live stream, Dan, and then we can continue?
Yes, I think this.
Go ahead, Glory. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say yes. It's been about a year, I think.
Yeah, I'd say let's go ahead and wrap it up, and then that way, if we want to chat a little bit afterwards, like we usually do, we can do that. So I will do that. So this is we're wrapping up. Thank you to everybody, and thank you to Sanjeev for joining us. We hope to see you again for many more to come up. We are in the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. Love Revolution That Begins With You by Matt Kahn. And we'll be moving on to the next section in the book, The Calamity of Comparison. And I think that one's going to probably be an interesting one